Good Friday morning, everyone. And what you're looking at here is a very modest little publication by New Falcon Publications, Crowley's Little Essays Toward Truth. And there's a wonderful introduction by Hymenaeus Beta. And it's got fun stuff in it like this. Little Essays Toward Truth. Now, I'm not going to read the entire Little Essays Toward Truth, although I could and I should, and perhaps I might be talked into to doing it. But there's all of these small little chapters. And the first one, which we're going to do today, is man. There's man, an essay on man, which includes sort of how the Hermetic Kabbalists categorize different characteristics. Well, we'll see as we get into it. But there's man, memory, sorrow, wonder, beatitude, laughter, indifference, mastery, trance, energy, knowledge, understanding, chastity, silence, love, truth. And there is a glossary of terms that's worth the price of admission in and of itself for those of us who study this stuff. It's just a small, modest glossary of terms, Kabbalistic, Hindu, otherwise, and it's worth having the little thing at hand. It was first printed. The first edition was a privately printed edition, printed and published by the OTO, Ordo Templi Orientis, in 1938. And this is the second revised edition, 1991. So even this is old and rare. But I'm just going to jump right into the first essay on man, because of its discussion of the classic Kabbalistic terms. And it's been many years since I've looked at it, and it just looked like something I'd like to share with you. There's a little epigram right there in front there that says, "The mind of the Father, writing on the subtle guiders which glitter with the inflexible tracings of relentless fire." Zoroaster. Man. What is man that thou art mindful of him? Man being the subject of these essays, it is first proper to explain what will be meant therein by the word. Man is a microcosm. That is an image concentrated around the point of consciousness of the macrocosm, or universe. Isn't that great? I'm sorry, that's just so cool. Man is a microcosm. That is an image concentrated around a point of consciousness of the macrocosm, or the universe. This theorem is guaranteed by the hylo-idealistic demonstration that the perceptible universe is an extension or phantasm of the nervous system. It follows that all phenomena, internal and external, may be classified for the purpose of discussing their observed relations in any manner which experience may show to be the most convenient. Examples: the elaborate classifications of science, chemical, physical, etc., etc. There is no essential truth in any of these aids to thinking. Convenience is the sole measure. Now, for the purpose of analyzing the spiritual nature of man, of recording and measuring his experiences in this kind, of planning his progress to loftier heights of attainment, several systems have been devised. That of the Abhidhamma, and I'll spell that for you because it's longer than it sounds. Abhidhamma. Adhimama. That of the Adhimama is on the surface alike the most practical, the most scientific, and the most real. But for European students, it is certainly far too unwieldy, to say nothing of the other lines of criticism. Let's just look and see in the glossary what Adhimama really is. A collection of treatises which embody the metaphysics of the Buddhist philosophy. Therefore, despite the dangers of vagueness involved in the use of a system whose terms are largely symbolic, I have for many reasons preferred to present to the world, as an international basis for classification, the classico-mathematical system, which is vulgarly and erroneously, though conveniently, called Kabbalah. The Kabbalah, that is, the Jewish tradition concerning the initiated interpretation of their scriptures, is mostly either unintelligible or nonsense. But it contains, as its ground plan, the most precious jewel of human thought, that geometric arrangement of names and numbers which is called the Tree of Life. I call it most precious because I found it the most convenient method hitherto discovered of classifying the phenomena of the universe and recording their relations. Whereof the proof is the amazing fertility of thought which has followed my adoption of this scheme. Since all phenomena soever may be referred to the tree of life, which may be multiplied or subdivided at will for convenience sake, is evidently useless to attempt any complete account of it. The correspondences of each unit, the 10 Sephiroth and the 22 paths, are infinite. The art of using it consists principally in referring all our ideas to it, discovering thus the common nature of certain things and the essential differences between others, so that ultimately one obtains a simple view of the incalculably vast complexity of the universe. The whole subject must be studied in Book 777, and the main attributions committed to memory. Then, by consistent use, the system is at last understood, as opposed to being merely memorized. The student will find fresh light break in on him at every turn as he continues to measure every item of new knowledge that he attains by this standard. For to him, the universe will then begin to appear as a coherent and a necessary whole. Now, I'll digress just for a second. Even this morning, Constance was discovering a brilliant connection that she made with the Class A document Stelle Rubier, or Book 66, with certain passages in the Book of the Law, and her reference to Hokmah Binah and Tifereth, just in the conversation, made a whole universe of things comprehensible, or to put it in perspective. But most importantly, it gave us both a language to which to communicate our thoughts on these matters. So, for the purpose of studying these little essays, it'll be sufficient if a bare outline of the cosmic theory which they imply be given. But it may be added that the fuller comprehension of the tree of life which the reader brings to them, the clearer will their thought appear, and the more cognate their conclusions. Now, the constitution of man is fivefold. Now, we always talk about the tetragrammaton, and there's the pentagrammaton, which is the tetragrammaton with a fifth or a quintessenal element that binds them together and holds them apart. When we talk about the pentamagram with in elemental terms, it's fire, air, earth, water, and or fire, water, air, earth, with spirit holding them together and pulling them apart. But I get ahead of myself. Okay. The constitution of man is fivefold. 1, Yechida. Yechida, or Yechida. Pronounce it any way you want. This is the quintessential principle of the soul, which makes man at the same time identical with every other spark of Godhead, and different as regards to his point of view, and the universe of which it is the center. From all others, okay, or from the center of all others. I'm going to read that again. Yechida, that's the unity of the soul. Okay. I believe it adds to 37. Okay. This is the quintessential principle of the soul, that which makes man at the same time identical with every other spark of Godhead, and different as regards to his point of view in the universe of which it is the center, from all others. It is a point possessing only position, and that position is only definable by reference to coordinate axes, to secondary principles, which only pertain to it per accidens, and must be postulated as our conception grows. 2. The Chai, pronounced or spelled Chia, Chiah. The Chai, but it means life. Okay, like when you toast. In Hebrew, it's lechaim, to life. Okay. This is the creative impulse or will of the Yechida, the energy which demands the formulation of the coordinate axis aforesaid, so that Yechida may obtain self-realization, a formal understanding of what is implicit in its nature, of its possible qualities. 3. The Neshama, or the Neshama, or the, pronounce it any way you want. This is the faculty of understanding the word of Chai. This is the intelligence or intuition of what Yechida wishes to discover about itself. These three principles, a trinity, Yechida, Chai, and Neshama. It's a trinity. These three principles constitute a trinity that are one. Because they represent the being and the apparatus which will make the manifestation possible of a God in manhood. But they are only, so to speak, the mathematical structure of man's nature. One might compare them to the laws of physics as they are before they're discovered. There are as yet no data by whose examination they may be discerned. A conscious man, okay, and when Crowley is, remember when Crowley was writing this, okay, his use of the term man, unless it's specifically in the context of a sentence suggesting gender, male, female, he's talking about a human being. A conscious man, accordingly, cannot possibly know anything of these principles, although they constitute his essence. It is the work of initiation to journey inwards to them. See, in the Oath of a Probationer of the AA, it says, I pledge myself to discover the nature and powers of my own being. This triune principle being wholly spiritual, all that can be said about it is really negative. And it is complete in itself. Beyond it stretch what is called the abyss. This doctrine is extremely difficult to explain, but it corresponds more or less to the gap in thought between the real, which is ideal, and the unreal, which is actual. In the abyss, all things exist, indeed, at least in posse, but they are without any possible meaning, for they lack the substance of spiritual reality. They are appearances without law. They are thus insane delusions. Now the abyss, being thus the great storehouse of phenomena, it is the source of all impressions. And the triune principle has intented a machine for investigating the universe, and this machine is the fourth principle of man, number 4, Ruach. Ruach may be translated mind, spirit, or intellect. None of these is satisfactory. The connotation varying with every writer. The Ruach is a closely knitted group of 5 moral, intellectual principles concentrated on their core. Tifereth, the principle of harmony, the human consciousness, and will of which the 4 other Sephiroths, so to speak, the feelers. And these 5 principles culminate, these 5 principles culminate a 6th da'ath, knowledge. But this is not really a principle. It contains in itself the germ of self-contradiction and so of self-destruction. It is a false principle. For as soon as knowledge is analyzed, it breaks up into the irrational dust of the abyss. Now I'm going to show you something on the beautiful version of the Tree of Life created by Hymenaeus Beta for this edition. You see the Yechida up here. And we see the Chai. See these little black labels, the Chai. And we see the Neshama over here, identified by that. Then we see the Ruach. Oh, where am I? The Ruach is this entire level concentrated in number 6, like he just told us. And we haven't talked about the Nepish yet, but that'll be down here. Okay. This is such a handy little book. Man's aspiration to knowledge, that's da'ath there in the abyss, is thus simply a false road. It is to spin ropes of sand. We cannot here enter into the doctrine of the fall of Adam, invented to explain the parable of how it is that the universe so unfortunately is constructed. We are concerned only with the observed facts. All these mental and moral faculties of the Ruach, while not purely spiritual like the supernal triad, are still, as it were, in the air. To be of use, they need a basis through which to receive impressions, much as the machine requires fuel and fodder before it can manufacture the article which it's designed to produce. And so that brings us to number 5, Nepish. This is usually translated the animal soul. It is the vehicle of the Ruach, the instrument by which the mind is brought into contact with the dust of matter in the abyss, that it may feel it, judge it, and react to it. This is itself a principle, still spiritual in a sense. The actual body of man is composed of the dust of matter, temporarily held together by the principles which inform it for their own purposes, and ultimately for the supreme purpose of the self-realization of the Yechidah. But Nepish, devised as it is with no other object than direct traffic with matter, tends to partake of its incoherence. Its faculties of perceiving pain and pleasure lure it into paying undue attention to one set of phenomena, into shunning another. Hence, for the Nepish to do its work as it should, it requires to be dominated by the severest discipline. Nor is the Ruach itself to be trusted in this matter. It has its own tendencies to weaknesses and injustice. It tries every trick, and it is diabolically clever to arrange its business with matter in a sense most convenient to its inertia, without the smallest consideration of its duty to the supernal triad, cut off, as it is, from its comprehension. Indeed, unsuspecting, as it normally is, of its existence. Ruach's just got us held captive. Ruach is like the movie projectionist that locks himself into the projection room and is forcing us to think about life rather than live it. Okay. What then determines Tifereth? That's that number 6, right in the center, the headquarters, if you will, of the Ruach. What then determines Tifereth, the human will, to aspire to comprehend Neshama, to submit itself to the divine will of Chai? Nothing but the realization born sooner or later of antagonizing experience, that its whole relation through Ruach and Nephesh with matter, i.e. the universe, is and must be only painful. The senselessness of the whole procedure sickens it. It begins to seek for some menstruum in which the universe may become intelligible, useful, and enjoyable. In Kabbalistic language, it aspires to Neshama. Tifereth, headquarters of the Ruach, aspires to Neshama. The Vav of the Tetragrammaton aspires to Hay. This is what we mean in saying that the trance of sorrow is the motive of the great work. This trance of sorrow, which must be well distinguished from any petty personal despair, any conviction of sin, or other black magical imitations. The trance of sorrow being cosmic in scope, comprehending all phenomena, actual or potential, is then already an opening of the sphere of the Neshama. And often we associate the trance of sorrow with the consciousness level of Binah, number 3, which would be the, according to this, the opening act of Neshama. Okay. Let's see. Well, I'll start that one again. This trance of sorrow, which must be well distinguished from any petty, personal, any conviction of sin or the black magical imitations, being cosmic in scope, comprehending all phenomena, actual or potential, is then already an opening of the sphere of Neshama. The awareness of one's misfortune is in itself an indication of the remedy. Remember, that's the first stage of the Buddha's awakening. All is sorrow. It sets the seeker on the right road, and as he develops his neshama, he soon attains the other experiences of this high order. He learns the meaning of his own true will, to pronounce his own word, to identify himself with Chai. Finally, realizing Chai as the dynamic aspect of Yechida, he becomes that pure being. And once the universal and individual equally nothing, one and all. It is the essence of the ideas of the supernal triad, and that the laws of reason, which apply to intellectual functions, are no longer operative. Hence, it is impossible to convey the nature of these experiences in rational language. Further, their scope is infinite in every direction, so that it would be futile to attempt to enumerate or to describe them in detail. All that one can do is to note the common types in very general language, and to indicate what experience has been shown to be the most useful main lines of research. The quest of the Holy Grail, the search for the stone of the philosophers, by whatever name we choose to call the great work, is therefore endless. Success only opens up new avenues of brilliant possibility. Yea, verily, and amen. The task is tireless and its joys without bounds. For the whole universe and all that in it is, what is it but the infinite playground of the crowned and conquering child, of the insatiable, the innocent, the ever joyful heir of space and eternity, whose name is man. Now, this high and the realization of the high, is very, very important. And the Yechida, the ultimate unity of the soul. Remember, I mentioned that Yechida, the number of Yechida is 37. And that long ago, as part of my early duties, was to create my own magical pantacle. And I've posted it a million times, including the essay that goes with it. And I mentioned what I'm about to say in that essay, just sort of in passing. But my pantacle, and pantacles, it's written someplace that the pantacle should ideally contain a circle and a cross by tradition. And so for a cross, I put 4 trees of life joined together at their kethers. Because the kether, number 1, even though there's 4 trees of life as expressed in the Tetragrammaton, everything that's going to be a thing comes out of that one. So all the kethers were one. I made them the center. All 4 kethers, one on top of the other, was the singularity in the center of my cross. And that means instead of 40 Sephiroth, 10 times 4, there's 37. 1 springing out in the 4 directions. Just like the function, just like the quality, if we can assign a quality to the Yechida. And 337s, it's 111, and it's a great prime. Anyway, until tomorrow. I don't know if we're going to continue that, but I just felt that was the thing to do today. Until tomorrow, continue to be good to yourself, be good to each other. Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. Love is the law, love under will.